spending cuts. Buddy Carter, you're with us. You're there. You understand the conversations that's going on. Is this president going to come up with boundaries to cut spending?
Well, he's going to have to, because we're going to demand it, and we're not going to raise the debt ceiling unless he does come to the table and unless we have significant spending cuts. Look, we cannot sustain this. He just submitted his budget, as you indicated, which was a month late, which puts us behind in the budget committee. We can't do our work until we get those figures that we so vitally need out of his budget. But the point is that, as Steve Scalise pointed out earlier, we're spending $1.29 for every dollar we pull in. We can't sustain that. We've got to stop spending, and that's what the debt ceiling is about. We are going to pay our bills. We're not going to default on any bills, but at the same time, we've got to stop this spending. This is the only time people pay attention to it, is when we come up against the debt ceiling.
Yeah. By the way, Congressman, I just got to get your take on this bailout. I understand you said it so well earlier, Adam Johnson. It's a bailout, but it depends on who's paying.
Correct. And in theory, taxpayers are not paying for it. As it turns out, the banks are paying for it because they're all assessed a fee by the FDC. But if you actually pull on that string a little further, ultimately, if the banks are having to cough up some money, you know that they're going to charge their customers more fees. So customers are paying for it.
So,
eventually.
Buddy Carter, what I want to ask, are we bailing out Chinese investors as well here with this bailout? Here's the Financial Times. The failure of Silicon Valley Bank has left many Chinese funds and tech startups in the lurch, as the collapsed institution served as a key funding bridge for groups operating between China and the United States. I'm wondering if we would have seen the same bailout if this was if Silicon Valley Bank was a bank in Texas and all its customers were oil and gas customers.
I suspect you would not have seen the same reaction from the Federal Reserve or from the Treasury Department. You know, we've had numerous calls with the Treasury Department about this situation. This is certainly a moral dilemma. Whenever you say that the FDIC is going to cover these deposits, even though this bank was not paying into that, and that, oh, it's not going to cost taxpayers money because the banks pay into this fund, and it's going to be the banks who pay this, well, guess what? The banks are going to pass that along. Look, I was in business for 32 years. You don't just absorb that. Of course you pass it along. But ultimately, yes, it will be the taxpayer.
What about the China angle? The Silicon Valley Bank's takeover by regulators also cast doubt over the fate of the joint venture that it has in China with the Shanghai Pudong Development Bank.
And no question about it. You know, you get the Chinese involved, and obviously that makes matters even worse. And I agree. I don't think that this would have been treated the same way if it had been a bank in Texas, because it was Silicon Valley Bank, and because of the investors there. This is a different situation. Keep in mind, the SVB and Signature Bank, these are the second and third largest failures that we've had. They weren't failures. We took them over. But at the same time, ultimately, the taxpayers are going to be the ones who foot the bill with this.
John Catsimatidis, we are falling fast. The Dow Jones Industrial Average at the lows of the morning. We're looking at a decline